In this day and age when millions of movies, live sporting events, TV shows, videos, music, podcasts, and more are just the push of a button away, it's important that we scrutinize every single detail and ensure that NASCAR broadcasts are primed to be as professional, informative, and entertaining as possible. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. This episode is sponsored by the Ridge Wallet. Ooh, check out the way it hits the light. This is the matte black titanium edition. I love the slim, sleek look to it. They have over 30 different styles and designs to choose from, so you're sure to find a look that suits you. Its durable, lightweight design makes it perfect if you're on the go. And with Father's Day coming up, the Ridge can make a great gift. You can shop the Father's Day guide on their site and find the best gear for your dad. Because they do make more than just great modern wallets, they also make things like backpacks. I've been using my Ridge commuter backpack for years, and they actually just sent me this new one just in time for all the traveling I'm about to do, going out to racetracks and stuff this summer. Check it out, these things are built to last. To get one for yourself or to check out their vast collection of Ridge wallet designs, head to ridge.com and use the promo code GROOVY at checkout for 10% off your order. You can also head to ridge.com/groovy to get the special offer as well. That link is down in the description below. Be sure to take advantage of that special offer. Thank you to the Ridge Wallet for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. Today we are talking about NASCAR television broadcasts. TV is extremely important. There's all this talk about how television is a dying medium, but the truth is millions upon millions of people still watch television in some capacity. In the case of NASCAR specifically, I say this all the time, but you might get 50, 60, 70,000 fans in person to attend a NASCAR race, but millions more will always be watching at home. So when it comes to maintaining or growing NASCAR's audience, how TV covers the sport, talks about the sport is still extremely important. If you watched my late night post-race Coke 600 review video a few nights ago, you probably heard me rant about how much I did not enjoy Fox's coverage of the Coca-Cola 600 this year. I touched on a few different things then, but because those episodes are filmed very stream of consciousness, I feel like I didn't articulate my points as clearly as I could have. So I wanted to take some time here during the week to dedicate an entire video to this topic, something I've been meaning to do for a long time, but better late than never. So I'm going to be critiquing the way NASCAR is covered on TV these days, and I'm hopefully going to be able to offer some constructive ideas as to how NASCAR TV broadcasts can change in the near future, hopefully for the better. So sit back and enjoy. I want to preface this by saying that I completely understand it. Live television is difficult. It is not easy to capture every moment as they're happening in real time. And a lot in this video is going to be subjective. These are just my opinions about how Fox and NBC cover NASCAR. You may disagree. You may love certain aspects of the Fox or NBC broadcast that I disagree with. So do just keep that in mind. And while I am going to be probably very critical in this video, I have also complimented both Fox and NBC a ton in recent years. So I think I can be pretty objective on this topic. I've complimented the way Fox and NBC have handled the pandemic last year, iRacing, when that became all the rage. Those broadcasts were great. How Fox handled last year's dramatic Daytona 500 finish or the Talladega debacle. On NBC, Dale Jr.'s slide job call was great. The way they've experimented with radio style broadcasts. I've complimented NBC and Fox a ton in recent years, so I've been very objective. Today's going to be very critical though, so just prepare yourself. Now we've gotten the whole preamble out of the way, I'm going to break this video down into two distinct sections. First, let's begin with the structure, the format, how NASCAR races are actually viewed by viewers, like what platform, what channel, what network, etc. Because to me, this is the most clear area NASCAR needs to adjust in. In 2021, people don't watch commercials today. Audiences pay for Netflix, for Disney Plus, for HBO, for YouTube Premium, whatever it's called, to not watch ads. And if we narrow our scope to motorsports audiences, that's even more true. The bar has been set by Formula One. Motorsports fans do not want to see racing action interrupted by full-screen commercial breaks. Formula One broadcasts in the United States and in many other countries are commercial-free. ESPN, who broadcasts the races here in the United States, just uses Sky Sports UK's feed, and apparently ESPN's not paying hardly anything for the rights to broadcast F1. And even before it was ESPN, when NBC had the F1 US broadcast rights, they were paying pennies per year compared to what Fox and NBC pay for NASCAR. So Formula One fans here in the United States are used to watching commercial-free races. And I complimented NBC this weekend because during the Indianapolis 500, NBC showed 0 full-screen commercial breaks during green flag racing. They did a good number of side-by-side ads where you had the racing still happening in one window and then you had the commercials playing over here, no commentary. They did do that quite a bit, but at no point during the race did they go to full-on, full blanket, full-screen advertisements, completely covering, completely shutting out the racing action during green flag racing. They did a few times during caution periods when, you're not really missing any action anyway, so those I think most fans can understand. But to me, never missing any second of the on-track action made the Indianapolis 500 viewing experience incredible. NASCAR and commercials. They go hand in hand, bread and butter. Batman and Robin. Look, NASCAR fans are used to seeing their sport commercialized. I mean, they got logos as big as anything on the hoods of each race car. Fans support their favorite drivers, sponsors. Like, advertising and NASCAR, it is somewhat expected. But in recent years especially, Fox and NBC have gotten into this bad habit of selling a lot of commercial space for their biggest races, like the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, any Talladega race. And so that's what led to this weekend's Coca-Cola 600 being flooded by not side-by-side commercial breaks. They still have some, and I do appreciate those, but many, many full-screen blanket commercial breaks. I counted more than 5 in the first stage of the Coke 600 alone. NASCAR must enhance the at-home viewing experience. An easy way they could do this is by bringing back additional services like NASCAR Race View, which was like the service where you had like 3D models of the cars going around the track. You had scanners and lap times and things like that all featured. Growing up, I had that every weekend. I was watching the race on TV and I had my laptop with Race View opened week in, week out. It was a fantastic tool that went away a couple of years ago. I wish NASCAR would bring that or something very nearly like it back very, very soon, especially since that 3D technology still very much exists and is often utilized during the broadcasts themselves. But aside from companion services like that, NASCAR should seriously consider launching their own NASCAR streaming service. Formula One has their own. It had some technical glitches in its early days, but now, based on what I've heard, it's very useful and many fans appreciate and enjoy it. They call it F1 TV Pro, and in the United States at least, it costs about $80 a year. You get commercial-free, uninterrupted broadcasts of F1, F2, F3, other series as well as additional content, things like that, and most fans seem to believe it's a pretty solid deal. Now, one issue Formula One may be having with F1 TV Pro that could also certainly plague NASCAR, and is likely why NASCAR hasn't gone with a streaming service yet, is the fact that there just aren't that many people willing to pay for something that they can still watch on cable or on TV. Now, I'm offering these suggestions. NASCAR President Steve Phelps told Racer.com this year that he doesn't see NASCAR exclusively going to streaming anytime soon. Do I believe there's a place for motorsports and NASCAR specifically in streaming? The answer is yes. I just don't see that being done in the foreseeable future for our NASCAR Cup Series races. So maybe it doesn't yet make sense from a business perspective to go fully into streaming. Alright, I get that. Well, the current TV contracts with Fox and NBC both expire after 2024, so let's talk about network options. CBS has emerged as a clear player in the motorsports world. They just landed the Superstar Racing Experience rights for this summer. They've been in deep conversations lately with IndyCar about possibly picking up the 2022 IndyCar season, so I'm sure when NASCAR's rights roll around, CBS could be a player. But I won't discount Fox, NBC, or even maybe a disruptor like an Amazon perhaps, you just never know. They could all play major roles and likely will play a role in NASCAR's next TV negotiation. But most likely NASCAR will stay on traditional television for their next contract. Whoever ends up broadcasting NASCAR in the future, the model must be such that calls for less full-screen commercial breaks, interrupting and disrupting the viewing experience at home. We joke about it, but those old, a quick word from Duracell ads from a couple of years ago, I mean, they were short, they were sweet, they didn't disrupt the racing action, we could still see racing on screen, they were memorable. I mean, maybe more things like that could be the way to go. Now look, I'm trying to highlight some suggestions and offer up some constructive criticism, but I'm not naive to the fact that much of NASCAR's revenue is dependent on what TV networks are paying. NBC is paying nearly $500 million a year to broadcast just the second half of the schedule. Fox is paying nearly that much for the first half. And so much of that money is what goes into the race teams through purse money. It goes to the racetracks. So much of the money that keeps NASCAR going comes from Fox and NBC. So I understand that NASCAR feels like they need to do what the networks want them to do. And if the networks want more time to show commercials, NASCAR may be power powerless in stopping them. But I would hope they're exploring options that would cut back on the amount of commercial break activity disrupting NASCAR events. When you have American motorsports fans watching commercial-free Formula One races and almost commercial-free IndyCar races, trying to watch a NASCAR race these days with countless commercial breaks becomes a chore, and it's going to hinder NASCAR's growth, and it might even hurt the audience it currently has. So that's all structure and format type stuff. Now let's talk about the second big thing in this video, and this is where we might begin to disagree some: the content. NASCAR is the regular season baseball of the motorsports world. Both are long, both are kind of relaxing and chill, and neither event really feels all that important in the grand scheme of things. You know, there's another baseball game tomorrow, there's another NASCAR race next week. That's the vibe I get more often than not from modern NASCAR broadcasts. Fox especially, we'll focus on Fox first because they've had the first half of the 2021 schedule, it's all fresh in our minds right now. Fox treats NASCAR like a Sunday drive, and to me that's doing the sport a disservice. NASCAR is intense. The cars are loud. They shake the ground. They shake the air when they thunder by. At any instant, a driver's safety could be in serious jeopardy. There's 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 fans screaming in the crowd. The pit crews go over the wall. They are trained athletes. But Fox strikes a casual and laid-back tone when covering the action. And I don't feel like they always did this, but in the last few years especially, there seems to have been a very pointed shift. I feel like you can almost point exactly when the shift started. It was probably around 2016, 2017, you could say, when the Daytona Day commercials first aired. They tried to make NASCAR look like a cool Sunday barbecue hangout, you know, Michael Waltrip's comedic grid walk and the many shenanigans associated with it over the years.
Do you want a taco?
He spilled it on the car.
It's all over the car.
They work on it.
Now what are you going to do?
The new Put It Out segment with Boyer, Jeff Gordon, and Chris Myers on pit road. This year, the comic book cartoon superhero style graphics. This last weekend, the Jay Leno cameo that took up, 8 laps of green flag racing. And I can't be the only one who feels like this year, listening to Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer, it feels like they're trying to see who can make the other one laugh the hardest. And sometimes it's great, and other times it falls completely flat. And I don't mean to say that all those things I just listed off are bad. I actually like the Put It Out segment. Occasionally, once in a blue moon, Michael Waltrip nails it with the grid walk. The Daytona Day ads were lame. The Jay Leno bit was lame. But I don't mean to say that the broadcast should be completely devoid of charisma and comedy and lighthearted, humorous moments. But my point is that Fox explicitly is focusing on that kind of stuff. That is their MO. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you laugh during a NASCAR broadcast more than they are trying to get you on the edge of your seat. At least that's how it feels to me. And I know I'm focusing on Fox, but I don't want to gloss over NBC too much here because they fall into a lot of these same traps as well. They're better, but not always. Like, for one, Fox's theme music is that, very like garage rock compared to NBC's, which is dun 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 dun. It sounds like trailer music almost. NBC's a little more serious than Fox, but they still have their, their Rutledge Wood appearances, which again, I like some of them, but sometimes they fall flat. And then I have little gripes occasionally with like Rick Allen, who's prone to making, verbal typos occasionally, but he at least has that big game, that Joe Buck big game voice.
Aggressive goes around.
My point is both Fox and NBC's coverage of NASCAR strikes a completely different tone than how Sky Sports covers F1, or how NBC these days honestly covers IndyCar more often than not. I mentioned this after the Coke 600 and Indy 500 this weekend, but when Scott Dixon stalled on pit road early in the race, oh gosh, the call from Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, Paul Tracy, it was a big deal. They gave that big moment in the race the weight it deserved, the attention it deserved. Compared to in the first stage of the NASCAR race, Ross Chastain, who qualified in the top 10, had run in the top 10, blew an engine, barely got a mention from TV. Come on. To me, it all goes back to that regular season baseball metaphor. If I could compare modern day NASCAR broadcasts to any other major sporting event, it feels like a Sunday afternoon game in June. When, we're having a good time at the ballpark, eating those $1 hot dogs and $8 beers and chatting with the shirtless dude next to us. But, if we lose today, it's a shame, but, there's another game tomorrow and a game after that and a game after that and a game after that. Chastain blew an engine in a crown jewel race after having a solid top 10 run going. That should have been a big deal, but instead it was not treated as a big deal because I think everyone kind of looked at it as, well, there's another race next week at Sonoma, and Chastain at this point is kind of winning you're in to make the playoffs anyway, so we'll just shrug it off. TV commentators can add so much to the viewing experience, and I feel like in recent years, Fox and NBC have kind of just sat on their hands and kept quiet and not necessarily taken away from the experience too much, they just haven't added anything to it. And to me, when you have that platform, when you have the capability to add to the broadcast, you're doing everyone a disservice if you don't take that opportunity when it's given to you. It is difficult to put into words, but watch 10 minutes of a Formula One race. Even pick like the boring parts of the F1 race where it's in the middle, where Lewis Hamilton's a 12-second lead. Like pick the middle boring parts of an F1 race, compare it to the middle boring parts of an IndyCar race, compare it to the middle boring parts of a NASCAR race, and you'll see the difference. So again, this is all subjective, but in my opinion, I think NASCAR and its future broadcasts should strike a more serious tone. Remind the audience that these are gladiators, warriors behind the wheels of these race cars that are putting their physical health on the line, especially at these big, fast racetracks, for our enjoyment. I go back to this year's Daytona 500. Big wreck happens early on, 20 plus cars involved, some big hits, and the booth just was silent, man.
Oh, no. Almirola Bowman.
Oh, the 24's on his side.
Compare that to the Indy 500 this weekend where one guy who wasn't even at the lead at the time wrecks out, and look at the reaction from the broadcast.
Oh, Ray Hall lost it out of the pits. Cold tires in front of the leaders. That was, a tire was hit. A tire.
I'm not saying the humor and the lightheartedness should completely go away, but it needs to take a backseat to the more serious tone that other motorsports events are having success with these days. But that is just my opinion. Now, NASCAR themselves can do things to make it easier on the TV broadcast. For one, I understand the Coca-Cola 600 is a 4-hour race. It's very long. It's hard to be entertaining throughout. It's hard to have things to talk about throughout. So, aside from the crown jewels like maybe the Coke 600, the Daytona 500, I think more often than not, NASCAR races should aim to be under 3 hours in length. Keep it short and sweet. Formula One can get away with boring races because they're only like an hour and a half long usually. So no one's sitting through it checking their watch because the race is condensed enough that the boring parts don't drag as long as the boring parts in NASCAR drag. And then obviously good racing obviously helps. NASCAR of course is working on different rules packages. They have a completely new race car next year, but if you have good racing, action happening on the track, drivers making mistakes and slipping up occasionally, that gives the broadcast more to talk about and that keeps the viewers interested. That's just obvious. I don't know what NASCAR can do there other than just, continue to engineer what they believe to be the best and most competitive race car. They've proven that no matter how hard they try, they cannot manufacture dramatic finishes every single week, no matter what they try to do. It's just not going to happen. So just make a good race car that puts on good racing more often than not, and things will eventually fall into place. But that's really all I can say about NASCAR. So from the structure and format, perhaps needing a change, should NASCAR consider streaming? Should they bring back other devices, things like RaceView, to enhance the at-home viewing experience? The network's over-reliance on long, full-screen commercial breaks hinders the viewing experience in a big, big way. All that format stuff is important, also the content stuff. In my opinion, NASCAR broadcast should strike a more serious tone, remind the viewers that racing is dangerous, that these cars thundering across the racetrack lap after lap in front of tens of thousands of people, remind the audience at home that this is a big, big deal. It's surreal. Like, the difference between watching a NASCAR race at home versus in person is staggering. Feel so much more of the energy, so much more of the experience when you're there in person. I know TV cannot perfectly replicate the feeling of 40 engines thundering by, but it feels like they could be doing so much more to at least try and match the in-person intensity that comes when watching a NASCAR race. That's just my opinion. Share your thoughts down below in the comments. I really want to know what you all think NASCAR, Fox, NBC, future networks can do to enhance the at-home television NASCAR experience. Because I'll say again, as important as improving the at-track experience for fans, selling tickets and stuff, millions more are always going to watch on TV. And so TV, the lens with which those millions watch the race through, has to be good, has to be immaculate to compete with the other great motorsports out there, the other great entertainment options out there. The broadcasts need to be tighter. They need to be more professional, more entertaining, more informative than they are now. And I think it's important that we have these discussions and lob out suggestions and lob out ideas so that whatever network or whatever happens in the future, the fans' voices can be taken into consideration. But that's all I've got for this long-winded, kind of different style Out of the Groove episode. episode. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR day in, day out. Usually we're reacting to races, talking about news stories, giving predictions, that kind of thing. Other times we take a step back and talk about TV for a long time. As always, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Thanks again for watching. I will see you all in the next episode. Have a fantastic rest of your day.